right, so we're going to take a look at exercise number 22. So this is chapter 3. And exercise 22. So this problem is process costing. So remember, process costing, these homogeneous type things. This is a chip company again. So chips are very, a chip is a chip is a chip. There's nothing specific or individual about it. So that would constitute a process costing type model. And we're going to do another equivalent units, but this one we're going to use the weighted average method. So just to repeat again, we have for process costing, we have FIFO method, we have the weighted average method, and then we have equivalent units. And under the equivalent units, we have FIFO and the weighted average. Okay. So for this exercise, number 22, we have the process costing equivalent units using the weighted average. So again, using the information from exercise 21 that we had done in class, if O'Callahan Snack Company used the weighted average method of process costing, how would you answer the following two questions? So when you're reading these, you have to be familiar with which method, which costing method, and then which type of method under that costing method. So you have to know first it's process costing, and then which method under process costing. So requirement A is how many equivalent units did O'Callahan complete during April? So why is the company concerned about this? Because they're trying to figure out what will end up in their finished goods and then what ends up in their cost of goods sold. So we have to understand how much was actually complete during April, because that's what would be in their finished goods, that number of units. So we start, this is A, knowing that this is using the weighted average method of equivalent units. Remember when we did exercise number 20, when it was just the weighted average method, we didn't start with beginning units under weighted average. Weighted average just considers everything to be started in the period that it was complete. So there aren't any beginning units. So when we start with the beginning balance, it's just 0 under this weighted average method. So we're going to assume all 23 units were started and completed during the period. So we had, or started during the period, we had the beginning work in process of 3,000 that was given, in the current period production of 20,000 that was given. So plus the units started is the full 23. Hopefully everybody remembers where the 23 is coming from. It's given in problem 21 when you're looking at this. Then we have the ending units, which is also given up in the information in problem 21. It's the ending WIP. So we have to take out units completed, or ending units, which is 5. We're going to take that right out of there. And then we'll say units completed during the period. Because remember, of the 20,000, that was the current period production. So that's everything that's being produced, plus the 3,000. So we're not saying that these were, this number here started, the 23, we're not saying it was completed. That's why we're taking out the 5,000 to get to this 18,000. Now we have to figure out the equivalent units. So what the equivalent units is trying to say is how many full pieces are actually completed in the period. So because they tell us what percentages have been completed in the previous period in the current period, we have to include those into our calculation. So if this is step 1, then we have step 2. So for this one, we know we have to figure out this number first. This is the amount that we're saying was completed of the 18,000. Now we have to figure out this ending WIP number. And we're saying 85% of it is complete. So we have the 5,000 times 85%. So it's 4,250. We're saying our equivalent units complete. So we'd add that. So instead of saying all 5,000 shouldn't be included in our completed units, what we're saying is 85% of the 5,000 was complete, so we're going to add that to our completed units. So now we have total equivalent units completed in June. And that's adding the 18,000 and 4,250 to get 22,250. Okay. All right, now for part B, they want us to calculate the cost of the ending work in process inventory. This is the one that we didn't agree with during class, but let's, again, I said in a quiz or exam problem, I'd make it more clear. But it wants to know the cost. In A, we were talking about units. So be careful when you're reading these questions that you're really clear on what it is. So this, like total equivalent units, this is 22,250 units, not dollars, just the number of units. So how are we going to figure out what the cost is? They don't tell us what the cost is. So we have to first, make this up here, we first have to figure out what the cost per unit actually is. So this is exactly similar to exercise 21 when we came out with the cost per unit, except we're using equivalent units. In number 21, we were using, so in 22 we're using equivalent units using weighted average. In 21 we were using equivalent units using FIFO. So you can see how these things change. So we have to figure out what the cost per unit actually is here. Okay, so first we have to figure out what the dollar amount is for production cost. Now, compared to exercise 21, hopefully you're looking at these together. In 21, we pulled in the 70,240 that was given to us above in the box for production cost. Well, in exercise 22, we actually have to pull the beginning work in process production cost plus the current period production, because remember, using the weighted average method, we are assuming everything was complete in the current period. Remember, we didn't have a beginning balance. So we're going to consider all of the costs for this current period. So we're going to take that $10,000 of beginning work in process production costs plus the $70,240 of current period production costs. So we'll have, this is for requirement B, we'll have $80,240 divided by the equivalent units that we came up with. So this 22,250 are the equivalent units. So we've got 22,250, and that equals $3.61 per equivalent unit. So that's per equivalent unit. They want us to know what the ending work in process inventory is. This is where it gets a little bit funny, because if we take the 5,000 times the 85%, that's the 4,250 that we actually said was a finished equivalent unit. In this case, they want us to know what the work in process is. So we're actually saying only 15% is work in process. So that's the 750. So, I mean, I would say it's 750 times the $3.61. Your book in Cengage is going to say 4,250 for equivalent units in ending inventory, which it's just kind of worded wrong. So if we were to say the 750 times 361, let's see, that comes out to 750 times 3.61. I mean, just about $2,700. But then if we were to say how much equivalent units is in ending inventory, which I'd call finished goods, then you do the 4,250 times the 361, which should give you 15,343. So I think it's kind of the wording in the problem, because, again, this is the equivalent units that are finished. So we'd say 750 is still in WIP, and that's the question's asking us to calculate the ending WIP inventory. So just be careful. Again, I'll make it more clear, but just read the problem and figure out what they're talking about. Is it finished goods, or the equivalent units that are finished, or what's left in WIP? Okay, so hopefully you found this helpful. I will post it on YouTube now. Thank you.